Hello everybody, welcome back to Future Fiber. This is your host Jenny, and this is a channel where I talk about all the crafty things that I do. It's mostly knitting. Today we have a video that I've been kind of teasing for a little bit, and it's my low buy. Well, it turned out to be a low buy, but it started as a no buy year update and a little bit of a stash tour. I didn't expect myself to make multiple videos about this topic, so I actually didn't do a good job of record keeping at all. I don't have a concrete number of how much yarn I started with, so bear with me on that. This may not be as scientific as some of the other yarn stash reducing videos that you might have seen. So a little background on my low buy experience so far. I made a video, I think it was like maybe halfway through 2023, about what I learned from doing the low buy and just some of my intentions, I guess, what I was feeling halfway through the project. But I don't think I ever said why I actually started doing a low buy. I mean, a lot of it was out of pure necessity because for the first half of 2023, I was unemployed, so I didn't have, extra money to throw around. Knitting is a hobby. I just didn't need to spend money on extra expenses like I used to. And then I also kind of felt like I needed to bring my approach on spending money on my crafts and hobbies kind of in check. I think there's something to be said about spending money being seen as kind of like a bad thing. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think spending as a concept is generally morally neutral. So I don't necessarily look down on people who, do spend a lot of money on yarn or do spend a lot of money on things that I might personally find frivolous. Like, that's just like their choice. And also, it's not my money. Like, go for it, dude. But I found myself really leaning into buying for my crafts, particularly yarn, as like a crutch for immediate serotonin a little bit. Just whenever I felt bad, it was just an easy way for me to have something that would be coming in the mail for me to kind of wait for. Having done this low buy, I kind of understand. How do I explain this? I think having done this year of kind of restricting my purchases and curbing my impulses has made me realize how much of a pre-established pattern in my brain that was. This is an experience that not everybody might relate to, but I struggle with the mental health a little bit. First of all, you cannot get this without any sort of mental illness, but that's a side tangent. When I was on antidepressants, I didn't realize that prior to being on antidepressants, I was in this constant state of anxiety and I just didn't realize where my mood was. And then once I was on the medication, I found that kind of slowly dying down. And then I am actually off of medication currently. And one of the biggest changes and adjustments that I had to make was just feeling those spikes of, I think interesting is the best word to describe it, interesting and different thought patterns that I was experiencing once I was not having that extra help from the medication to really rebalance how I was feeling, I guess. But once my brain had some time to reset itself, I was able to understand actually these thought patterns that I'm having are kind of unlike me. Like it is my thoughts, but I don't really want to think this way. And I was able to identify that a little bit more. And I feel the same about this low buy that I did. I do want to make a distinction here. I'm not trying to say that having a bit of a shopping affinity is equatable to having depression. This is just the closest simile that I found in my experience of having an extended period of absence of something and then having access to it again following the event and then seeing how the mental model changes, I guess. So example, before, this goes to everything, not even just yarn, but before I would find something to buy, whether that be served to me through advertising, or maybe I just saw it, or maybe I just somehow convinced myself that I needed something. And once I had that thought in my brain, I couldn't let it go. Even if I would employ tactics that are supposed to be a little bit better for you in terms of like curbing your spending or curbing your desire to spend, like waiting a couple days, putting it in your cart, leaving it, and then walking away, and then sleeping on the decision, things like that. Even if I did that during that 24 or like three days or whatever that I set for myself, I would constantly just be like, okay, I am thinking about this thing. I think I really need it. I think I really need to purchase it, so I might as well as just purchase it. So like for those duration of time that I set for myself, I would still be like, okay, I am fully immersed in thinking about this thing that I don't have in my life and how much better my life would be if I just had it. Obviously, like from a more balanced emotional perspective, you might be like, I don't know if that's the right approach. The whole purpose is that you don't think about it for 3 days and then you come back to the decision and see if you want it. Clearly that was not what was happening there, but I just didn't realize it at the time, you know? Another thing was like, I was really operating off of like a scarcity mindset. Like I mean, I think this happens. This is done on purpose with shopping a lot, but with a lot of yarns or just things in general. Once things go on sale, you feel like, oh, like the sale is timed. It doesn't happen often. You don't know how long you have to wait until the next one. So you feel like you got to buy something. I think the Knitting for Olive sales are a really great example where I was just like, oh, I got to get something. They never do sales, which is now I know to be untrue. Like they do sales like at least annually, it seems like. That wasn't great for my wallet, but also it wasn't great for this. Like I wasn't necessarily creating stuff from that yarn immediately. I have a lot of yarn, as you will see, that have project ideas, but also a lot of yarn that I completely bought on impulse. All those things, I was able to just analyze that pattern of thought a lot better once I had this low buy year of just kind of telling myself, no, you're sticking to the plan. You do not need all this stuff. So it makes it easier for myself to cut myself off of buying things, if that makes sense. Obviously, this is not going to work for everybody, but that was my experience. Overall, it was a good thing. And even if I end up in places where previously I would have been triggered to make a purchase, I no longer have that intense drive or desire to or need to purchase something, which I think is a win. Now I'm able to walk out of a yarn store without buying anything, that's pretty crazy. Would not have been me previously. Well, anyway, that was my low buy experience from like an emotional perspective. But what about the financials, you may ask? So I call it a low buy because I looked through my activity over the last year. I do keep track of my expenses kind of loosely. I'm not really a big budgeter. I did notice that I really did reduce my spending by a lot. Now, by spending a lot is very subjective, right? Like a low buy for me might not be a low buy for you, and that is completely okay. But also keep in mind, I do have a YouTube channel where I knit a lot, so it might look a little bit different. Last year, it seemed like on average, I spent at least like $10, $15 every month on some sort of craft related thing. A lot of it was gifts. So I bought a lot of yarn that I would make gifts out of. So that was one thing that I did allow myself to purchase. So naturally that did happen. Another thing was I did buy yarn to finish a couple of projects that I had started with stash yarn. And that just felt like it wasn't originally part of my intention to spend that money on more yarn, but it just felt right, you know? Like, I gotta finish the thing that I started. But, like, that does not account for why I consistently spent money, right? So I noticed that I had consistently spent money on patterns to do projects. And I looked at the purchase of the patterns that I purchased and then like how many of those I actually knit, and it wasn't 100%. So I could have done a lot better on that front. Like I was definitely buying patterns at release that I didn't knit. All in all, that was, I think, the bulk of the spending. And obviously I didn't spend money on things outside of yarn. Like I didn't buy clothes for the entire year. I didn't buy any shoes. I didn't buy any that, which actually helped a lot with my finances. I was spending a lot of money on clothes. I didn't realize until I did this. So that was good to know. So that's my experience on the no buy that turned out to be a low buy. I had kind of like mixed feelings about like how much money I actually did end up spending once I looked at everything. But I think what I'm leaning towards is to not really let myself feel guilty about it, because I started the project kind of, or challenge rather, as a means to serve me and not really anybody else. Like my finances are my own. Even if I did allow myself to fail in certain aspects, overall it did help me, and I hope to carry that vibe and energy into this year as well as I continue to use up all of this. If you have any more questions, leave them down in the comments. I'll answer them kind of in there. I don't think I want to make more videos about this, even though I do feel like a no buy, low buy is trendy this year. I have said that in another video, I think. I think people are trying to spend less this year. I mean, probably because there's a recession coming-ish, potentially. All right, so now we're getting into the stash tour. I'm going to try and keep this kind of brief. What you see here behind me is my entire yarn stash. Now, this looks a little bit overwhelming. Trust me, it is overwhelming for me too. Let's start off by explaining what I started out with, which is I have these 4 plastic bins stacked up here. These were completely full to a point where I had to like really press down on the lid to get it closed. I also had another like this big sized bin that was full of odds and ends of yarn that is now empty. I have this little folding crate of yarn, and then I also have this yarn cart, which all 3 there's 3 levels to this, and all of them were full with yarn. And now I have just this bin, this basket up here, and then part of the second level is filled with some yarn as well. And then the bottom level is completely empty. It's just project bags. Oh, I should mention that I removed yarn that is currently being used as part of a work in progress. So it's a little bit false to say this is every single yarn that I have in my house. It's just the ones that are currently being identified to me as stash. And then lastly, I have this singular basket. This is also yarn. That's quite a bit of yarn still for somebody who didn't buy a ton of yarn last year. So imagine how much yarn I had before I started. Before I started this video, I kind of like went through and categorized the yarns into different respective areas. We'll leave the big boys to later. Let me start with the easier things to talk about, and that is this crate. You can see it's not that full. This is all the yarns that could be turned into socks, but none of them are really full skeins of yarn. Like, I don't think any one of these are enough by themselves to make one pair of socks. So that's why they're all in here. And I'm going to have to figure out some combination of these to knit a couple pairs of socks. So I don't know how much I can get out of this, but this is all wool superwash. Well, okay. Well, this is all like machine washable yarns that can be turned into socks. And I've come to realize that I am a very bad person when it comes to sock care. So I need all of my yarns to have some sort of like polyester nylon content so that they don't die in the wash when they accidentally make it in there. So this is like a dedicated, separated crate full of sock yarn. Kind of big category I'll talk about here. This is just like single basically sub 2 balls of yarns that I have left over from different odds and ends of projects. These are mostly DK weight, DK worsted. And they're all different fiber contents, but basically you'll realize that when I quickly go through this, you'll kind of see that these have been all incorporated as part of a project before. So the first up, I have 2-ish balls of Feels Like Butter. This is like a baby yarn from Lions brand. And I have it in the colorway, goodness, I have no idea. But I have 2 balls of this. This will just have to be made into baby clothes. I have some people in my life that are having babies very soon, so I might turn this into some sort of project for them. I have 1 ball of Drops Lima. This is the mixed color, and I think it was the colorway Petrol, but I used this for a Christmas gift 2 years ago for my boyfriend, and I still have this left. I have 1.5 balls of Drops Nepal. This is just in this white color, and I use this in conjunction with this. This is the Friends Wool from Hobie, and I have 1 ball of this left. And I used these together to make a striped cardigan that was inspired by a Miu Miu cardigan. I have this much left of it. And let's see. This is a Color Mart cashmere. And I used this to make a Gregoria Fibers sweater. I don't have it with me anymore. I gave it to a friend. But I held this guy with Knitting for Olive mohair. And that was in the colorway Dusty Artichoke. It made a really nice green. I just don't really look good in green. Also, I just didn't like how the sweater felt and fit on me. So I gave that away to a friend. But this is how much I have left of it. I think this is sub 50 grams for sure. And then this is also a Color Mart cashmere. This is, I believe, like about 50 grams. So these 2 are the same weight. But I have this, and this is left over from the Sophie scarf or Sophie shawl that I just finished, and this is Plymouth Yarns Baby Alpaca Worsted, I believe is the yarn name, and this is a little bit less than a single skein of that yarn, so another, similar weight to use. And then I have 2 cotton balls, 2 cotton yarns here. This is also sub what they come in. Like, this is smaller than 50 grams, I believe. This is Wool and the Gang Happy Shiny Cotton, Shiny Happy Cotton, in these 2 colorways here. I got them from a kit. I never ended up making the kit, so I have 2 of these, and I've yet to find something to do with them. And the rest of them are kind of like that here, where I have this acrylic yarn left over from making a baby bear bonnet. This was the Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly. So just all of this entire bin is just like that. And then I have some Knitting for Olive cotton merino. This is 1 1/4 of it. And yeah, I have some other, this is Cascade 220 fingering weight yarn. That it's not superwash, so that's why it's not in the sock yarn bin. And then I have, this is Ice Yarns. I made the Robinson wrap cardigan with this and some mohair that I held together, but I don't know what I would use this for. So basically the theme of this yarn bin is single skeins that need to be used together, or find like little projects to use them for. Yeah, expect some scrappy projects with these yarns in the future. Definitely baby knits are in order with these yarns, but also I think I want to maybe make some more like scrappy sweater type projects. So I might look into, I think Other Loops has a striped sweater that's all different colors. Maybe it was like the structure sweater. And then I have this little Ziploc bag of yarns that will be used as like stuffing for different projects. This is like little bits, really little bits of yarn, or like yarn that I just don't really want to use to hand knit. Like this cotton yarn I've had for years, and I've used it in crochet projects, but I just don't really think I will be using this anymore. So I made this little zippy of all the yarns that I'll kind of like cut up and use as like amigurumi fillings, or I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll make a cushion. So that's the first level on this card. Oh my god, we have so much to get through. And then the second level is all mohair and like fuzzy yarns. These are not really enough for me to make large projects out of, I don't think. And then also I'm like trying to move away from fuzzy yarns, which is why these are in their own category for now. For somebody who's said that she doesn't really like mohair, I do have a lot of mohair, and that is because of my mistakes in the past of having used mohair that I've come to realize my newfound dislike of fuzzy yarns, or mohair specifically. However, it does look really nice, you know? It looks nice. However, I don't know if it's worth it anymore. First is the Ziploc bag of like single balls of mohair. These are really like little scraps of it, so I will have to use these together and come up with something. Maybe another pair of Ecstatic socks by Cool Stitches is in order, but it'll be like stripy with like a single base for the wool that needs to be held together with this. So that's one option. And then I have 2 balls of these. Okay, maybe this is not like sub 1 ball, because we do have 2 balls of Drops Kid Silk here. And this is in the colorway 26. But it's this kind of variegated, like they call it long print, but it's like different colors throughout the ball. So it gives the finished garment like this like striped effect. I use this for the Robinson wrap cardigan. I have 2 balls of this, which I don't understand because I thought I bought exactly the right amount, but there's a lot of yardage in these balls. So I never know like how much I'm supposed to be using, but these haven't been touched. So if I can't think of something to make with this, I might sell it, or maybe I'll give it away to people. And then I have one and little change of, this is Barocco Mochi. I think this color was in the colorway Red Bean, and this was Blueberry, I believe. But these are like these chainette kind of balloon tube-ish yarns that I bought on a whim at a yarn store, and it was like on sale, which is why I bought it. And then at that time I was like, I love fuzzy yarns, give me all the fuzzy yarns. So that's how I ended up with these, but I actually don't like them because these are really scratchy. I made this into a pair of mittens, and then this I haven't touched at all, so I don't really know what to do with it. And I would not want this anywhere near my neck or face, so it will have to be mittens or something like that. And yeah, I'm feeling a little bit regretful about this purchase. I have a little bit left of the Drops boucle, Drops Alpaca boucle. This is in the off-white color. I bought like 5 or 6 balls of these, and then I used it to make a zipper sweater for a friend. And then I held it together with some other yarns that I had to make a Lonely Leftovers vest by Wool and Beyond. I have this much of that, this left, and I'm not quite sure what to do with this. Maybe it'll get held together to make like a little hat or something. But yeah, this is all I have left of that. And then I have this little ball of... Oh, coincidentally, it's the cardigan that I'm wearing right now. That's made from this yarn. This is Knit Picks Wonder Fluff in the colorway Larkspur Heather. And I actually, to make this cardigan, I held it together with Knitting for Olive mohair, but I have like a little bit left of that. I used this yarn to also make a bonnet. So now I have this much of left of it, and I'm not really quite sure what to do because this is not enough to make something on its own. So I might have to hold it with something. And in similar fashion, I have the comparable yarn from Plymouth Yarns, which is Plymouth Yarns Ariado, I believe it's called. Yeah, I actually kept the tag for this one, which is very rare. Yes, Ariado, which is 70% baby alpaca, 7% merino wool, and 23% nylon. And this has a very similar, you can tell that I had something with like these like blown chain knit kind of yarns. Like I have these 3 different types. Oh my god, hair. This one was in the colorway indigo. And each ball has about 283 yards. I used this to make a petite knit Stockholm sweater V-neck. And I don't actually love that sweater because of this yarn that I used. This yarn, it feels soft when you touch it, but then it is a little bit irritating for me on bare skin, so I didn't love this. So I'm not really quite sure what to do with the rest of this, honestly. And the last thing is I have a little bit of this fuzzy yarn with a linen core. This is from Color Mart because you can tell because it's on a cone. And this was DK Weight Baby Alpaca Linen Miracle. So it's baby alpaca blown around the linen core. This I actually didn't mind. This was pretty nice. But I don't really have a lot left of this. So this is going to be another like scrap project something. So this is all my fuzzy yarns that I gotta figure out what to do with because your girl needs a little bit of variety nowadays, but you know. Okay, now we're moving on to the big boys. I said that these bins, plural, they were all filled with yarn. And I managed to use up a lot of them, which I'm kind of proud of. They're mostly in these bins, one because of color coordination. You can kind of tell that they are they were mostly by color. And another thing is that I had kind of put them in these bins because they are yarns that I intended for a specific project. So I guess I'll go through that now. These are pretty old. Basically, the yarns in here I've purchased at least 2 years ago. So I really got to use them and I'm working through them. So the first bin, this is where I kept a lot of my pink yarns. I did, pink and purple. I did work through the purple and now I am on the pink. So I think I've shown this in a podcast episode before, actually. I bought these yarns from Pearl Soho and I believe this is Brooklyn Tweed. This is a sock yarn and this is Pearl Soho, their mohair line, also in like a similar pink color. I have 3 of each and I really thought I had 4 of each, so this might actually be a problem for me because I intended to knit a basic round neck cardigan that is kind of closer fitting to my body. So we're really going to play yarn chicken with this one. It might need to have contrast ribbing and cuff and things like that and kind of be cropped. Woo. I bought these like years ago, like 2 or so years ago. Definitely when I started like knitting, like very early in my knitting journey, so to speak. So I bought these online and I didn't know really anything. I don't think I've used mohair when I bought this. So this was like my first mohair purchase. Just some sock yarn and just some mohair. A classic combination together. I have picked out a pattern to knit this. I'm going to have to check the yardage again on these things because I lost the receipt email. But if I can figure out the details of these 2 yarns, I'll like put them in the screen. And dear readers, to no one's surprise, both of those yarns are discontinued. The sock yarn was Brooklyn Tweed Peary and the mohair was Pearl Soho Broom. And they don't make either of those anymore. So I don't know what I'm going to do because I definitely need more than what I have to create the project that I have in my mind. So, yeah, something creative might be in order. Why do I keep doing this to myself? Fully had the intention to make that round neck cardigan, but I just never did it until like I'm going to cast it on soon. So this just shows that, you know, some things, even if you have an intended project for it just languishes. And that's like all of these bins basically. And then the other ball of thing that's in this bin here is Hobie Yarns Winter Glow. And this is a synthetic mix yarn. I believe it's just 50% wool and 50% acrylic, but it does feel a little bit more acrylic than wool. And I haven't used this yet because I was originally going to knit like a cardigan from it, and then I knitted a cardigan that I wanted to knit from this with a different yarn that I had. So I didn't want two of the same thing. So I've yet to find purpose for this guy. But I actually think it might be a scarf. And I was thinking of maybe I can crank it out on the central knitting machine as like a tube so that it's double layered so that it's like thicker. That might be in the works. Or I might knit like a v-neck sweater. I've seen people knit that as well out of this one ball, and I think that might also be a nice idea as well. But these are like the two that are in this first bin. Second bin, we're entering this gray kind of section here. This is actually all yarn that I plan for a single project. And the first one is I have this Debbie Bliss Cashmerino, Baby Cashmerino, I think was the yarn name of it. I actually took this yarn from, and is it like an existing sweater that I had? It was my favorite things knitwear, like a turtleneck sweater. I actually have a short of me unraveling it, but I just didn't love that sweater. I didn't like the fit of it, so I fully intended to make something else with it, and then I wanted to make like a cable cardigan with this actually. Well, I did find the pattern for it, and then I just never casted it on because the pattern that I wanted to use is a vintage pattern, so it doesn't come charted, so I just wanted to make a chart for it before I started working on it, and then I just never got around to doing it because your girl is lazy. And somebody had suggested that I actually hold it together with a different yarn because this yarn pills very easily, and I knew that because I made a sweater and had worn it. So I thought that was a good idea and recommendation, so I bought this yarn to hold together. This is a Blue Sky Fibers yarn, and I have 3 balls of this. This is 100% wool, so I am hoping this will give more structure to the Cashmerino held together. And I think the color will make a nice kind of combination together. So I just need to get started on this. Once again, this is a thing that has a project already assigned to it. I just haven't had the time to get around to it because I was like, ooh, shiny, to other things. This next yarn bin is when unplanned purchases kind of go wrong. So I have like 3-ish balls of this acrylic yarn, and I actually took this from a thrifted sweater, so I feel less bad about having hoarded it, but it's really just not the nicest yarn, so I am actually considering getting rid of it. It doesn't feel nice enough to sell or anything, so I might give it away for free or I might donate it. I just don't really see myself using this, especially when I have so much other yarn to get through. And knitting with this is not the best experience, honestly. So it's kind of a bummer that I tried to be a little thrifty and it didn't work because it was a lot of work to unwind this yarn as well. So the other yarn that I have here, I'm not going to take it out of its form because this is, yeah, it's going to fall apart otherwise. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plates of Platelopi, Istex Platelopi. And I bought this yarn totally on a whim. I forget who I watched on YouTube, but they were really like, I love unspun yarns. I love natural yarns. Like untreated wool is great. So I bought this very, very early on in my knitting career. And then I couldn't figure out what to do with it. So that's why it's kind of sitting here unused. And I have 7 plates of this. I do really want to knit something with it. I just haven't decided. So if you have any good ideas for this much yarn of Platelopi, do let me know. I knew going in that it was going to be kind of difficult to work with. So I was okay with that. But I don't know. I just didn't love how scratchy it was. And that's like the nature of Icelandic wool, but I just wasn't thinking about it like that. And I really got swept up in the fad of this a little bit at the time. So I feel like I don't really see a lot of people pushing like Platelopi or like Newton or this kind of like pencil roving anymore. So maybe the fad has come and passed, but you know, I have this. I am stuck with this yarn. So I gotta do something with it. I have considered selling it, but honestly, like, I think it will be a fun little experiment to knit with it too, and I want to see what the final garment will wear like. So I will do something with it. I just don't know what. I was thinking maybe I wanted to knit the Petite Knit Jenny cardigan in this. Jenny jacket, rather. I don't know if trying to do those smocking stitch pattern with unspun pencil roving is necessarily the best idea. Even if I held this together like two-stranded, I'm like, that doesn't seem like a thing that I should be endorsing, nor should I be attempting. So I'm going to throw that out the window. So if you have any other ideas, let me know. I don't feel very comfortable using this in color work either, so it's going to basically have to be some sort of stockinette project, which is a little bit of a bummer. But if you've done anything interesting with this, do you like it? Let me know, like, if you have any suggestions. But that's this yarn of regrets. This bin is, I think, the most regretful so far of all of my yarn stash. But you know, you live and learn. This is the end of the plastic bins. Very happy. It's got a lot of yellow. This entire bin is yellow yarn. And that's because I bought these yarns with a very specific project in mind. So let me just go through what's in here. First of all, we have some Drops Kid Silk. We have 1, 2, 3 balls of this. We have three balls of King Cole Opium. I didn't even realize what the name was when I bought it. But it's this like cotton acrylic polyamide blend yarn that's very like thick and thin. It's got a lot of like variation in textures. And we have, this is a baby yarn, Baby Shimmer DK. I don't know what the brand is. James C. Brett, I guess. And this is in the shade BS2. Yellow, sparkly yellow. It's a DK weight yarn. And lastly, we have Cascade 220 in this kind of like more mustardy color. I can tell you the color is 7827. That's not very helpful. But yeah, it's Cascade 220 fingering weight. This is not superwash. So these yarns, why do I have these yarns? It's because I intended to make a yellow kind of tweed texture jacket. And I had this full vision of like a very Chanel tweed looking jacket that's a little bit cropped, long sleeves that I could wear in like the spring. And that was 2 years ago that I had this thought and vision, and I just haven't done anything with it since. So that's why I have all these yarns. But I do still want to make that a dream come true. And now I actually have the pattern that I picked out for it. The pattern that I want to knit is the Natalie Tweed by Thing Knitwear. It's a Korean knitwear designer. That pattern is available in English. I don't know how good the translation is because I fully intended to knit it in Korean, but it is available if you want to braid it. That's why there's like weird textures in here, because I mostly bought these yarns looking at texture and combination of these colors, like how much of a tweedy fabric it could make. And I've done some swatches and it looks pretty tweedy, so I'm excited to see what it will work up as. But yeah, there's a lot of this yarn, and I think I have enough to make a jacket, but if I don't, I don't know what I would do with myself. But I've hoarded these yarns for 2 years like this. We have our final bin of yarns. This is bulky weight / acrylic yarns that I have. Most of this basket is a blanket. But first of all, I have one whole ball of Loops and Threads Colorcraft, which is 100% acrylic yarn. I actually bought 2 balls of this because I thought I needed 2 balls to make 10 hats. I only needed like half of one. So I'm stuck with this guy. It's just black acrylic yarn. So I'm not quite sure what to do with it. I might just make some sort of like house sweatshirt type. Or maybe I can hold it with some other yarn and then to make it, give it a little bit more luxury feeling. But it's just like a basic acrylic yarn. Nothing wrong with it, but I don't really want a black blanket either, so I'm not quite sure what to do with this. And I have like a fraction of a ball of, this is Lion Brand Homestead yarn, I think, or Thick and Quick, one of those. But it's this like blue and pink spun yarn, and I got this is 100% acrylic, I think, and I got this because I wanted to teach my friends how to knit, so I told them to buy bulky yarn because I was like, you need to be able to see what you're doing, and I want you to finish this quickly. So that's why I bought this. I did make like a cup cozy with it, and I, got decent use out of it. So maybe I'll just make some more cup cozies of some sort. The rest of this is a blanket. We have a work in progress crochet blanket here. The OGs will remember because I showed this in my first ever podcast episode. And then we have 3 balls of this Hometown Yarn Lion Brand in the colorway Houston Cream. Yeah, I was intending to use, I don't remember what brand this yarn is from, so I don't have, I don't know. I have no idea. These 2 I intended to put together to make a blanket, and depending on how you see it, I got far or not very far, but I just don't think I'll complete this project actually, which is kind of a bummer because I hoarded these yarns for so long. But I just don't love, first of all, this is a crochet project. I don't love doing crochet, and I don't like working with the Hometown yarn. I think it took me a couple of tries to realize that I don't like that yarn. Like Lion Brand, it's a great company, and I like their other yarns. This bulky yarn, I hate working with it. Like, I hate crocheting with it. I hate knitting with it. It splits easily. It feels really not great on my hands. So I have a lot of this, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. So this might be another thing that just disappears. Like, I might donate it, which is unfortunate because I think having a blanket would be nice. But I also realized that that greenish, bluish color is just not really something that I would want as anything in my house, which is a little bit unfortunate that I realized that after I worked on like 1/3 of a blanket. Yeah, sad. At some point, you just gotta cut your losses, and it's taking up space in my house, in my brain, and I need her gone. That's my stash. This is not a insignificant amount of yarn. This is honestly more than I thought I had. So I'm feeling a little bit bummed out, but also I am keeping in mind that I started with a lot more and I did work my way through. I'm excited to see how much of this I'll use up this year. My goal is to, keep knitting from stash, but I'm not going to necessarily severely restrict myself from buying yarn. But I also think this is doing stuff like this, like going through it and explaining, what I'm going to be doing with it and stuff, is a good reminder for me to not just buy yarn all willy-nilly, because I do have projects that I do want to make. Yeah, hopefully that was fun. Let me know how much you have in your stash, or don't. Do what you want. And are you going to be doing a low buy this year? And let me know how it goes, because I would be interested in hearing. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want to see me actually make stuff that I said I would make. And I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye!